Let's explore what it means to be bi and dive into 9 common myths you might actually believe about bisexuality, and you'll learn why bisexuality can be such a confusing thing for both the outside world and bisexual people as well. First off, let's get our definition straight, or not so straight in this case. Bisexuality is the romantic or sexual attraction to more than one gender. This can mean attraction to different genders in different ways, or at different times. It's not about being halfway between gay and straight, or choosing sides, or any of those old cliches. It's about having the capacity to be attracted to people of more than one gender. Now, why all the confusion? Well, for starters, bisexuality doesn't come with a manual. It's as diverse as a giant bag of mixed candies. You never know what you're going to get, and everyone likes different flavors. And just because you like chocolate and vanilla doesn't mean you always want a swirl. Speaking of confusion, let's talk visibility. Bisexuals often feel invisible in both straight and LGBTQ+ communities, kind of like a guest star in 2 shows, but never a regular. You're there, but somehow people still ask, but which show is really yours? This invisibility can make it hard for bisexuals themselves to understand and define their own experiences without feeling like they have to justify their existence. Lastly, before we jump into those juicy myths, remember, understanding bisexuality isn't just about dismissing myths. It's about recognizing and respecting the richness of human sexuality. So, as we go through each myth, think of it as peeling back layers of an onion, revealing the core truths beneath, hopefully without all the tears. Myth number 1, bisexuality is just a phase. It's a classic line that you've probably heard before. But let's see what science says. A 2008 study by Lisa M. Diamond, published in Developmental Psychology, followed a group of non-heterosexual women over a decade and found that bisexuals maintained their bisexual identity over time, debunking the notion that this orientation is merely transitional. But why does this myth persist? It often stems from societal expectations and stereotypes. In a culture that loves clear labels, bisexuality can seem like a temporary stop, not a destination. This misunderstanding is further complicated by the visibility issue. Because bisexual people may end up in relationships that appear heteronormative or homosexual to outsiders, their ongoing bisexuality is invisibilized. To cite another study, the American Psychological Association notes that sexuality can be fluid for some people, which means it might change over time. However, this is not unique to bisexuality. Fluidity doesn't invalidate bisexuality as a legitimate orientation. It merely acknowledges the complexity of human sexuality. The key takeaway? Change in one's sexual orientation doesn't mean the initial identity was a phase. It's part of a broader spectrum of human experiences. Finally, understanding bisexuality as a legitimate and stable identity is crucial not just for those identifying as bisexual, but for broader societal acceptance. When we dismiss bisexuality as a phase, we undermine the experiences and validity of bisexual individuals. By recognizing and respecting bisexuality as a stable and long-term identity, we contribute to a more inclusive and understanding society. Myth number 2, bisexual people are confused. Oh boy, I bet you've heard this one before. This myth suggests that bisexuality is a result of uncertainty about one's sexual orientation rather than a clear and valid identity. So, are they? Nope. Bisexual individuals are just as certain of their feelings as anyone else. Being attracted to more than one gender doesn't mean confusion, it means a broader spectrum of attraction. This misconception might make a catchy soundbite, but it's as substantial as a soap bubble. Pretty to look at, perhaps, but destined to pop at the slightest touch. Interestingly, the concept of being confused fails to account for the self-awareness many bisexual individuals possess regarding their own sexual preferences and attractions. They often spend considerable time reflecting on and understanding their feelings, much like anyone else exploring their identity. This introspective process underscores that bisexuality, far from being a sign of confusion, is a clear and confident understanding of one's diverse attractions. This greater acceptance within oneself highlights not confusion, but clarity and the embrace of a broader spectrum of human experience. Furthermore, a 2008 study published in the Journal of Bisexuality delves into how bisexual individuals manage their identity within a society that frequently imposes rigid categorizations. The research findings highlight that many bisexual individuals intentionally affirm their attractions consistently over time, irrespective of their partner's gender at any particular moment. Contrary to the misconception that bisexuality represents a transient phase of uncertainty, this study underscores the enduring nature of bisexual identity. Myth number 3, bisexuals are greedy. Here's a myth that really grinds the gears of logic. It suggests that bisexual individuals are greedy for being attracted to more than one gender. This myth paints a picture of bisexual people as collectors of experiences rather than human beings with genuine feelings. So let's set the record straight, with some solid facts and dismantle this outdated idea. First off, the term greedy implies an excessive desire that exceeds necessity. But when it comes to human relationships and attractions, who's to say what's necessary or excessive? Attraction doesn't work on a quota system. Also, framing bisexuality through the lens of greed is a classic example of misunderstanding the nature of attraction. Dr. Maria Pallotta Chiaroli, a scholar in sexual and gender diversity, argues that bisexuality is about the capacity for attraction across more than one gender, not about the quantity of relationships one has. Her research emphasizes that being bisexual does not inherently mean acting on every attraction. Additionally, perpetuating the greedy bisexual stereotype can lead to significant social and emotional challenges for bisexual individuals, including stigma and isolation within both heterosexual and LGBTQ+ communities. This stigma can deter bisexuals from openly discussing their identity, thereby reinforcing the cycle of misunderstanding and misrepresentation. To bridge this gap in understanding, education is key. Highlighting the diverse nature of bisexual identities helps dismantle stereotypes and promotes a more nuanced view of human sexuality. It's not about being greedy, it's about being human. Myth number 4, bisexuals are more likely to cheat. This myth is particularly pervasive and damaging, suggesting that bisexual individuals are inherently incapable of monogamy or loyalty due to their attraction to more than one gender. Let's dissect this stereotype and look at what the research actually shows. To begin, associating bisexuality with a higher propensity to cheat confuses sexual orientation with personal values and behavior. Cheating is a behavior linked to individual choices and ethics, not to whom one is attracted. The Kinsey Institute provides data showing that relationship decisions, including fidelity, are influenced by a myriad of factors such as personal beliefs, relationship satisfaction, and social environment, rather than by sexual orientation alone. Thus, it's unfair and inaccurate to single out bisexuals as more likely to cheat. A 2022 survey conducted by the Pew Research Center reveals that bisexual individuals have similar rates of monogamy as those who identify as straight or gay. This statistic directly contradicts the myth, highlighting that relationship styles and choices cut across all sexual orientations without bias toward one being more likely to engage in infidelity. It's also important to consider how such myths propagate harmful biases. The stereotype of the unfaithful bisexual can lead to mistrust and stigma in relationships, potentially causing unnecessary strain and misunderstandings. The narrative that bisexuality equates to a higher likelihood of cheating also overlooks the many bisexual individuals who engage in ethical non-monogamy. These arrangements are consensual, open, and honest, fundamentally differing from cheating. Clarifying the distinction between non-monogamy and infidelity is crucial in discussions about bisexuality and trust. Myth number 5. Bisexuals must have equal attraction to all genders. This myth suggests that to be genuinely bisexual, one must experience a perfectly balanced attraction to each gender. However, this isn't just unrealistic, it fundamentally misunderstands the nature of bisexuality. Bisexuality, like all forms of sexual orientation, exists on a spectrum. The Bisexual Manifesto of 1990, a pivotal document in the bisexual community, states, "Bisexuality is a whole, fluid identity. Do not assume that bisexuality is binary or duogamous in nature, that we have two sides, or that we must be involved simultaneously with both genders." This declaration highlights that bisexuality doesn't require equal attraction in any quantifiable way. Attractions can vary greatly in intensity and change over time, reflecting the fluidity and diversity within individual experiences. Research supports this view. A study published in the Journal of Sex Research found that many bisexuals report varying levels of attraction to different genders at different times. This variability does not diminish their bisexual identity, rather, it enriches it. Dr. Lisa Diamond, a psychologist and sexual orientation researcher, further clarifies this in her work, suggesting that expecting a 50-50 split in attraction is a misinterpretation of what bisexuality truly is. She argues that bisexuality is characterized by the potential for attraction to more than one gender, not by a prescribed equality of attraction. The insistence on symmetrical attractions can lead to unnecessary confusion and pressure for bisexual individuals, making them feel like they must justify their orientation by demonstrating equal attraction to all genders. This expectation can marginalize those whose experiences don't fit a simplistic model, thereby contributing to the erasure or invalidation of their identity. In essence, bisexuality does not adhere to a rigid formula of attraction. It's about the capacity to be attracted to more than one gender, not the obligation to do so equally. By acknowledging the real diversity within bisexual orientations, we can foster a more inclusive understanding that respects the complexities of human sexuality. Myth number 6. You're only bisexual if you've dated both men and women. This myth insists that bisexual identity must be validated through experience, essentially saying that to be truly bisexual, one must have romantically or sexually been involved with both men and women. Let's clarify why this is not only inaccurate, but also unfairly dismissive of personal identity. Bisexuality, like all sexual orientations, is defined by attraction, not action. One's orientation is about whom they have the capacity to feel attracted to, irrespective of their relationship history. The misunderstanding that bisexuality requires experiential proof stems from societal expectations that conflate doing with being. However, just as a person can know they are heterosexual without having been in a relationship, bisexual individuals can recognize their potential attractions without having explored them with every gender. Clinical psychologist Dr. Liz Powell, who specializes in LGBTQ+ issues, emphasizes that many people identify as bisexual without having dated both genders. This is not unique to bisexuality. People often understand their sexual orientation based on their feelings and attractions, rather than their dating history. Dr. Powell's observations highlight that the essence of bisexuality is the attraction to more than one gender, not necessarily the experience with more than one. By insisting that bisexual individuals validate their orientation through specific experiences, this myth not only imposes unrealistic standards, but also invalidates the experiences of those who may not have the opportunity or desire to date widely across genders. This can lead to feelings of inadequacy or exclusion from the bisexual community itself. The myth that one must date both men and women to be considered bisexual overlooks the fundamental nature of sexual orientation as an internal identity. Myth number 7. Bisexuals are just a small part of the LGBTQ+ community. Quiz time! Did you know that nearly half of the individuals who identify as part of the LGBTQ+ community are actually bisexual? That's right. Contrary to the common myth, bisexuals aren't just a tiny fraction. They represent a substantial segment of the LGBTQ+ spectrum. This surprising statistic from surveys like the one by the Pew Research Center challenges the notion that bisexuality is somehow a lesser or more obscure identity within the community. The notion that bisexuals are a smaller group can lead to diminished advocacy and resources allocated to them, impacting their ability to fight for equal rights and recognition. By understanding and acknowledging the true demographic weight of bisexual individuals, both the LGBTQ+ community and society at large can better address their specific needs and challenges. Myth number 8. Bisexual people always end up choosing one gender eventually. Let's tackle a common misconception. The idea that bisexual people will ultimately choose one gender over another, as if bisexuality is just a temporary state before settling on a final orientation. This myth not only misunderstands bisexuality, but also oversimplifies human sexuality. Bisexuality isn't about being indecisive or on the way to deciding between heterosexual or homosexual. It's a distinct and valid orientation in its own right. The truth is, Many bisexual individuals maintain their attraction to multiple genders throughout their lives. This continuous attraction underscores that for many, bisexuality is not a transitional phase, but a permanent aspect of their identity. The persistence of this myth may stem from societal pressures and the binary view of sexuality, where people feel compelled to fit into clear-cut categories. However, sexuality is far more complex and fluid than this binary allows. It's important to recognize and validate the experiences of those who live outside these traditional norms. By challenging this myth, we affirm that bisexuality is not about moving between choices, but about embracing the full spectrum of one's attractions. Understanding this can lead to greater acceptance and support for bisexual individuals, ensuring they are recognized for their true identities without pressure to conform to binary expectations. Myth number 9, bisexuality doesn't exist. Here's a myth that sounds more like a plot twist in a poorly scripted drama. Bisexuality doesn't exist. Despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary, some still claim that bisexuality is merely a label used by those who are either confused or seeking attention. Let's dispel this myth with clear facts and understanding. The myth that bisexuality doesn't exist denies the real and valid experiences of millions of people. It's a harmful narrative that undermines the complexity of human sexuality and contributes to the stigma and invisibility that many bisexual individuals face. By acknowledging and affirming bisexuality, we challenge these outdated notions and support a more inclusive understanding of all sexual orientations. In conclusion, bisexuality is a real and important aspect of human diversity. Acknowledging its existence is not just about correcting a falsehood, but about respecting the identities of a significant number of people around the world. It's time to move beyond myths and embrace the full spectrum of human sexuality. What do you think? Are there any myths we've missed? Let us know in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification button for more LGBT videos like this one. Also, check out our bisexual pride clothing and merch at pridecampus.com. Our bisexual merch comes with subtle and explicit designs, the perfect way to celebrate your pride and style. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.